But whether these creatures are in physical form or in spirit form, it affects everyone. And I would put forward that the incredible evil that we can't seem to do anything about, from thimerosal in our vaccines that are retarding our children, to chemtrails that are dumping who knows what, aluminum and nanoparticles, and we don't know what's in that stuff, but we can see the pictures of these barrels inside the planes. And anybody with common sense that's aware of this and is looking up and seeing all these trails in the sky from jets, that's, they have some sort of lame excuse, but there's no official announcement, but no one can seem to do anything about it, to endless, nonsense, murderous regime change wars. To poison GMO foods, and just a fake oppressive financial system, a fake oppressive medical system, a fake oppressive education system. It's all related. I believe that it is these non-humans, whether they're in physical form or whether they're in spirit form living in us, we need to be aware of it. We need to wake up to it, because there's no way, now that I know this, that I'm not going to continue to talk about it. Because my parents worked in the field of psychiatry and psychology, for instance. And they didn't know that many of these problems that we're having are due to this spiritual factor, these beings that live in multiples, by the way. It's not just one, multiples in everyone. A lot of people think, no, I don't have evil spirits living in me. Okay? Everyone. Unless you are delivered and you enter the kingdom of God, in my opinion. But the on-the-ground facts are that I uploaded some material to YouTube, supposedly just showing these supposedly, if you don't believe it, non-human features. And here I get buzzed by Los Angeles Police Department helicopters day and night for over 6 years now. They don't quit. This is a program which I later found out is called targeting or gang stalking, is a more common term. And I had heard this term loosely. I had no idea what it was until it happened to me. And you watching will probably have no idea. Most of the people that even can come close to believing me, they've experienced something like this, which is why they're interested in this subject. But if it hasn't happened to you yet, it just sounds like crazy people, coming up here. Oh, I'm, crazy. So I'm imagining every helicopter that flies overhead is some sort of government-sanctioned psychological warfare program. Well, let me tell you, it is, and I'm not crazy. I never had anything like this before that time in February of 2013, when I uploaded my first movie that had nothing to do with politics or any other subject. Neither was I involved in anything else that could have possibly caused it. And here I got helicopters buzzing me day and night. They would wake me up at 12 with this loud, bah, 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 bah. And then I had police come to my door, which I knew, let me be clear, I knew before they came to the door what it was about. And they gave some lame excuse. There was 4 LAPD outside my door, and I knew what it was. I knew that it was about the material that I had uploaded to YouTube, and they were trying to intimidate me away from it. The message was clear, okay? And I clearly chose not to obey it. But the message was clear. Do not talk about this subject. Do not upload these kinds of movies showing this, okay? And I even got kind of a quasi-message later that I'm breaking the rules, as it were. Well, when they are poisoning our children and poisoning our air and oppressing us with all kinds of stuff, suppressing advanced technologies that could have liberated millions out of medical problems that they otherwise could solve if they had this technology, and an oppressive enslavement type banking system and debt system. They want to get you into debt. All this stuff, and people know about this. Education didn't used to be this like endless debt situation that it is now. As Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was saying, that he gave a speech. in New York, and he was saying that we didn't have all these diseases now, but before they had, before 1989, when they increased the shots up to something like, I don't know how many it is, like 70 different shots, and now all of his 6 kids have certain food allergies or whatnot. And when they were growing up, when he was growing up, they didn't have any of that stuff. And it all comes together in a picture. And the picture is, our planet is oppressed by these non-humans. And I don't care who thinks I'm a nut, or who thinks I'm on the fringe, or who won't include me in any of their news reports or talk to me or anything like that, because I'm a crazy fringe guy, you know, who's talking about reptilians, conspiracy. I'm a David Icke devotee or something. David Icke, by the way, is a British sportscaster who, his book that you want to read if you want to see the whole thing that he believes is called The Biggest Secret. And basically it outlines that we have these non-humans, specifically reptilians, living among us, and they, get this, eat people. Yeah. And that's what all the constant satanic ritual abuse is about. The child sacrifice is about. That's what all the missing children is about. And they cover it up. They have control over all law enforcement and all major businesses. And anybody who steps out of line or reveals any of this or talks about it or talks about the non-humans, you get put out of business. And I would have been put out of business with 3 assassination attempts against me. And at least 2 of them, I knew that the assailants that they had sent to kill me died when they attempted to do so. Thus they learned that I had protection from the Lord. Okay? Yes, there is a God. Yes, you need to listen, because this whole thing, you wonder, what is all this about? What does this mean? How can this all be? How does it exist? Why does it exist? It's part and parcel of the entire Earth package experience, okay? It is about a test. What are you going to do? And more importantly, what are you not going to do? But that is a broader topic. I give this introduction to the update video showing the evidence of these gang stalking helicopters for the most part. There's other things too. Oftentimes they'll use demonically controlled security and other people to harass me, but I don't get street theater too much. The stalking and types of harassment tend to vary from individuals. By the way, there's millions of people affected by this worldwide. If you check out gang stalking or targeting, Japan even has a 1,500 member plus group of people that are reporting this, and people, like I said, people who are not affected by this, they just don't believe it. They don't think this is real. But if it happens to you, or if you step out of line, or as one sociology major, this young man comes in and says that when he wrote a paper that supposedly went against the grain of the hypnosis mind control set that they have over society, he was gang stalked, targeted by an AI, an artificial intelligence. He called it MOGS. He's very clever young man. But he made this movie, and I uploaded it to my channel to further spread the news that if you step out of line with our world control system, which, by the way, if you want to know who is the real leader of it all, yes, Satan is real. He is a real figure. He is not some sort of fantasy, made-up story by a bunch of old Jews who were bored and wanted to scare their kids. This is a real character. And yes, he is reptilian. And yes, the story in the Bible is true. He was an angel of excellent beauty and wisdom, but he rebelled against God. And apparently, when you rebel against God, really bad things happen, like being turned into a beast. And the beast that he was turned into was a serpent, i.e. reptilian. Bipedal reptilian, not a snake on the ground, as most people think the word serpent means. It is, in fact, a situation where this fallen angel, who was exceptionally talented and beautiful, but he rebelled, and when he rebelled, he refused to do what God told him to do, and then he fought against God. He actually turned into a hideous beast. And then in successive generations, he bred, and his children, they were also turned into beasts. And by the way, a variety of beasts, all kinds. The Egyptian paintings that you see with the large characters with the bird head and the looks like an anteater head and all this weird stuff. Well, these are not just made up gods that the Egyptians just made up and it's some big animal headed god. These were real beings. They look like that. That thing with the alligator head, I've seen something like that in spirit form, which you can see in my study on Escape from New York with Kurt Russell. You can actually see the jagged shape of this elongated mouth that's in spirit form as you see his head. And then you see the teeth in the mouth, and you see the jaggy shape of the mouth, and you see the tiles, the alligator or crocodile tiles, like a square like this, and then a dot in the center. And you can distinctly see it. And there's more on how you take video apart so that you can see this, but it's really not that hard. You can do it with a regular flip camcorder. That's how I did it the entire time. You don't need high tech, just a regular flip camcorder pointed at your television and or regular people in public. I've seen demonic distortion on people, and it's some really weird stuff, but apparently the truth of the indwelling spiritual being somehow shows up in the distance. And so in a distance shot or low light shot. And so when you zoom in on a far shot, when there's a lot of distance between the subject and the camera, that's when you can notice it a lot. And not everybody exhibits it very strongly. Not all. You may think that all movie stars have it. Keanu Reeves shows it especially strong, and Harrison Ford shows it especially strong. But someone like Brad Pitt hardly saw any of it, no matter what I took apart on it. And I don't know, maybe there's some other movie that would show it more, but there's no telling. I show it. I want to be clear about that here also as well. I show it. Demonic forms. Fangs. Yes, there were fangs. Tiles, and discoloration, like green tiles, weird looking stuff. Slit eyes. Even a maniacal grin. It somehow translates into what the camera sees. You can't see it with the naked eye unless maybe you're a psychic or clairvoyant or something like that. Maybe you can see it more readily. But this issue affects everyone. And people are getting killed left and right. And if you want to ask, what's the point of all this? How can all this be? It's about God's creation and what you're going to do with this life. More particularly, what are you going to not do? Because this life is a test. This whole thing is a test. It's a spiritual test. And the purpose of devils, which is what these reptilians are, and there's other beings too that they fall into the category of devils, because their goal is to facilitate sin so that you choose to sin, and when you do, you belong to them. So they can't take you and eat you. But the reptilians, not all of them eat people. The insectoids don't, apparently, or maybe they use humans in other ways, but they don't devour them alive like the reptilians do, which I think is a pretty nasty way to go, if you ask me. But this is happening. This is real. And if you continue in sin, if you choose to reject God, if you choose to do the wicked oppressions that Satan has laid out, it's all legal. You can go and get your college degree. My parents did. In legal, but they're sins, they're crimes. And if you continue in them for the money that you need, for your home and for your food, you will be a victim of these devils. They want you to sin, because there is one thing that is bigger and badder and more terrible and more of concern than even being eaten alive, or your children being eaten alive. Yes, there's a priority that's higher than that. There is a thing that's worse than that, and that is the common fate of man. YouTube it. Hell experience. Hell witness. This is more important and more devastating and more relevant to every single person watching right now than anything else, because you don't want to go there. It's so bad. It's worse, by all accounts, than the worst situation that you can imagine in prison or any other terrible situation here on earth. Worse than all of that put together. And the problem is, you're already dead. You can't even commit suicide to get out of it. And by the way, don't commit suicide, because then you'll definitely end up in that place. Now, what you're seeing with these helicopters and what you're seeing with all this, apparently, is Satan's world control system fighting against anyone who reveals them. Okay? But this information will only be believed or even possibly taken into account by someone who is reasonable to the point that they say, okay, maybe there is a God and maybe I do need to do something about him. Okay? And that doing something about God and doing the right thing, there's only one way, and that's Jesus Christ. The carpenter from Nazareth was God's son, and him dying on the cross was in fact the way that God provided for all men to come to God and be saved. So don't neglect that opportunity. Don't turn away and say, no, I'm a Muslim, or I'm a Buddhist, or I'm an atheist, and I don't believe in any of that stuff, and I'm not going to follow any of that. Don't say that. Because hell is full of Buddhists, Muslims, atheists, and even Christians that they accepted Jesus Christ's offer of salvation, but they didn't act right. They weren't honorable in that covenant. They continued in fraud. They continued in subtle forms of murder and disinformation, which is the normalized legal occupations of this world. So you're asking what all of this is about. This is about judgment. Earth is a sphere of judgment. I am not one of those Christians who think that there are no extraterrestrials. There are 3 different types of beings that I know about. Extraterrestrials, physical beings from other planets. Extra-dimensionals, which I believe is a whole category of beings which are not necessarily devils, but include devils. They're in this other subdimension. New Agers call it the 4th dimension. People from the biblical point of view maybe call it the 2nd heaven, or the hell dimension, if you want to think of it that way. Okay, and then there is the 3rd thing is the physical beasts living among us, which may or may not be extraterrestrials. They may be native to this domain. So there's 3 different kinds of beings, in my opinion, and these beings are generally, and not 100%, because God's word even tells us that not all of them are evil, but we've got to do something about this, okay? I can't stop talking about this now that I have seen and understand that the reason why we got fluoride in our water and poison coming down in the air and GMO foods that give us cancer and vaccines that are retarding our children left and right. We got retarded children left and right, and no one can change the law because they've already passed a law in our so-called good American Constitution backed great society that's the freedom and beacon of light in the world. And yet other countries that don't have all of our money and technology woke up to this whole thing about putting fluoride in the water. Are you kidding? It's poison. It's destroying people's minds. It's destroying people's health. And vaccines that are obviously, I mean, you don't have autism in these backwards or out in the boonies where they don't have vaccines. You don't even see. You don't see the Down syndrome. You don't see all this crap. It's from the vaccines. Largely, and then all the other stuff, our poison food, our poison water, our poison air, and nobody can do anything about it. Well, how can once I discovered these non-humans, which by the way, the ones that are in physical form among us, they're shapeshifters, okay? They handle all of the business on the surface for the main ones that are either living below and or in the other dimension, i.e. Satan, okay? Is a spirit. We're spiritual beings, and we cross over into the physical dimension. So it's very confusing. But the fact of the matter is that we need to wake up to the fact that our whole world society is being oppressed by these beings, and America is their core base of support. That's how they control the world. You can't control the world without military to back it up, and America is the military arm of Satan that keeps control over the whole world. And until the world does something about America, there will be no change in the world oppression regime of Satan's government.